Thank you very much. Okay, Chris, we're taking it out. We're the last one.
All right.
We're standing between you and everybody else. And
between us and lunch.
Exactly. And roundtables. I'm going to start off with, I think, the most interesting thing and ask you, because I was going to ask you a little bit about yourself, and I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, but also end with, you were attacked by a drone?
I was. This summer, one of my buddies is a big drone photographer, and one of his drone, actually, when you go to land it, you can go and grab it from the bottom and turn it over like a shark to turn it off. And when I went to grab it, it thought that my hand was a bird or something and went straight into my forehead. Oh. So fun little drone fact, so watch out, be safe.
All right, well, that's well learned. Let's start off with this. Tell me, how do you do search for restaurants? And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about, I've been involved in a couple pitches for QSRs, and I've noticed that they don't necessarily use a lot of search. Like, they don't have an always-on sort of evergreen, at least the ones that we had pitched. How do you guys use it, and what's your strategy?
Sure. I mean, I think search often gets kind of overlooked in the restaurant space. When you look at companies like Starbucks or kind of different companies within the space, you kind of focus a lot on the branding versus some of the traffic that you are ultimately driving kind of within that, hey, I'm looking for a restaurant near me. What is the nearest restaurant that I can find? And there's a lot of opportunity in that. I mean, I look at some of our strategies that we've run both at Qdoba as well as on some other restaurant brands, and a lot of times that search budget kind of gets the leftovers of, oh, we're going to spend this on display, we're going to spend this on broadcast and all of that, and search is an afterthought. And the interesting thing now with Google being so integrated within Google Maps as well as really looking at intent with near me, that it's really a miss if you're not within that space.
I could totally see that. I think that, well, I would ask you this, like, what learnings are you looking for? Like, for me, when I was flabbergasted that there weren't searches, there weren't people buying keywords when we pitched some of the guys we pitched. What are you looking to find out from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is kind of just looking at that consumer journey. And so, I mean, when you're thinking about restaurants, you're not necessarily looking at getting people to take digital actions. Online ordering and delivery is growing, but
is that the biggest. Sorry to interrupt. Is that something you have specific terms for? I mean, are you going specifically after online delivery?
Yeah, I mean, as people are looking for different ways to convert, we're obviously making sure that kind of those different elements are in place for if they're looking to go into their nearest Qdoba, hey, let's route them there. If they're looking to order online, let's figure out how to get them the quickest way there. But I think the most interesting thing within kind of working within that brick and mortar model is we don't necessarily care about clicks. We care about people actually walking into our restaurants and all of that. So with partners like Placed and Cubic, having that on display where you can actually track that foot traffic attribution, it's nice that kind of the walled gardens like Google, Facebook, and all of them are also building out kind of their own foot traffic attribution model so that you can see, okay, people searched for these types of terms, you were spending this much money, but it resulted in these many people walking into your restaurants.
Do you report directly on store visits, and do you report from multiple sources when you do that with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the dream. It's been a long journey. I mean, I remember back in the mid-2000s when Placed was just starting to bring that capability to market, that when I was working on Red Robin, we would report on clicks to the website and how many people got to the menu page and all of that, but it doesn't necessarily translate into, did that person walk into stores? How do we know that our marketing spend is actually impacting our foot traffic? And now being able to actually pull that into our reporting is crucial, and not only being able to say, okay, our marketing dollars are being effective, but these are the types of tactics that are working for us.
Let me ask you about this. The GrubHubs, the the DoorDash. When we were talking about, I kept saying Diner Dash. What are they, that was me when I was like 18.
Steve must be a Diner Dasher.
But how did those affect you? Like, what does that do? Because to me, it's almost like another search engine, right? So it just leaves you out of the loop unless you're there. If people start their journey or whatever, they're hungry, they start it there. How do you use that?
Sure. I think restaurant discovery has evolved pretty significantly over the last couple of years with not only, obviously, Yelp has been around for a long time, but with delivery partners like Uber Eats and DoorDash and GrubHub, consumers are discovering their restaurants through those types of apps versus going to Google and searching for a restaurant. They're looking for the restaurant that is the path of least resistance to them in food. And so they're looking for something easy that they can tap a couple buttons and get food delivered to their door. And they're completely bypassing kind of the duopoly of Google and Facebook, Google and Bing right now, and going straight into those apps. So I think the way that we think about search is really about kind of figuring out how are users using these platforms, and how do we make sure that Qdoba is in the right place for us to be able to be found.
Does it make a difference for you as far as like the landing page environment? Let me just ask you this: have you ever bid on any of those? I don't need any more. Have you ever bid on any of those keywords? So like DoorDash or GrubHub, or just online ordering in general? Or do you bid directly on that?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at specifically kind of our competition and how they're kind of coming up, our competition historically has been the Chipotles, the kind of fast casual other restaurants in the space. But when you look at kind of who is not only bidding on our terms, but also bidding on a lot of the non-branded terms, it's the online ordering platforms that are really kind of coming in and saying, okay, here's the opportunity. It's people who are looking for these restaurants. We either have that restaurant on our service or we have a competitor to them, and that's an opportunity for them as well.
Does that change your ad copy or even your keywords in some ways, in the sense of, let's say that they are in fact bidding on your keywords, right? Your branded keywords. Are you coming up with a keyword? Are you coming up with ad copy above that says online order here? Are you combating that in any way, or is there a combat? Is it more like getting along with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to combat that is just to be more relevant. When you look at, I mean, you guys see it all the time. When you search for a certain keyword and you see all of a sudden a generic ad copy that comes up for the company as a whole, you're not going to click on it because it's not actually relevant to you. If you're searching for a SUV and all of a sudden it's just coming up with a generic automaker ad copy, you're gonna keep scrolling by and it's not gonna resonate with you. So I think going back to your question, the best way to combat that is really to just make sure that, hey, the user intent behind this keyword is this is what they're looking for. So what's the best way to tailor our ad copy to make sure that we leverage that?
Well, let's segue that because it's actually the same question, really. What about landing pages? What do you think of that? Is tying it directly into, let's say it's an online, I don't want to stick to online ordering, whatever it might be that they've typed in your domain name or your brand name, and you've got some of the other guys showing up on it as well. What page are you taking them to? I mean, do you know enough about them that they just want that online order and they just want directions, or they just want to know business lunches or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to kind of the customer journey, it's making sure that and we're guilty of this as well, of kind of trying to throw every option at consumers to say, hey, here's all of the information you possibly can consume on our site, and have the menu of options. But it's really about figuring out, okay, if somebody's coming in and searching for online ordering, how do we get them to go down that conversion funnel of figuring out, okay, are they going to get delivery, or are they going to order online, or do they want to come in store, type of thing. So I think going back to your question on landing pages, it's really about figuring out, okay, what is the top 2 or 3 things that user is looking for, and making sure that nothing else distracts them from that journey.
Well, this might sound kind of complex, but are you changing anything based on time of day? I mean, just because of lunch and dinner and all that, is it a different keyword set or a different landing page environment?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see different behavior kind of the lunch crowd. I mean, you think about the lunch crowd is often people who are working, looking for something quick, versus dinner, you might be picking up something for your family or things like that. So just definitely kind of it goes back to relevance, that, hey, making sure that the most relevant topic is in front of them.
What do you think is next for not just QSR, but just restaurants in general? What do you think is the next big digital change for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Uber Eats and GrubHubs coming into play, restaurants didn't necessarily know how to best leverage those as they were coming in. Do they see them as people who are simply trying to take a margin of your restaurant check, and all of a sudden you basically are held hostage in order to get that order?
Yeah.
Or do you see it as an opportunity to, as people are only looking at the Uber Eats app and kind of scrolling through the restaurants that are available, I personally view it that, hey, if you're not there, you're not gonna get that order. So it's somebody who is acting differently, and it's a different dining occasion than somebody who would necessarily come into your store versus somebody who might be binging Game of Thrones and just want something easy delivered to their house. I mean, Domino's and kind of the pizza industry has dominated that category up until the last couple of years with these delivery platforms. But I personally believe the delivery platforms give you an opportunity to get outside of your four walls and serve a completely different customer.
And see, that would be my question. It's like, would I stop bidding on delivery type keywords if I was getting so much traffic from that? And I would guess I would ask you if you're able to share it. Once GrubHub and all those guys came in, did you see a dramatic increase in any of your, I imagine you saw increase in your takeout orders, but what did it look like?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is really about how restaurants are reacting to that. I mean, you look at Starbucks. Starbucks was an early leader in kind of online ordering and all of that, and they very quickly realized, okay, we can push all of our online orders and have the pickup window be the same. But you look at the Chipotles where they're actually physically changing the interior of their stores to make sure that, hey, instead of interrupting the in-restaurant flow of people who are coming in and ordering at the counter, and then having an online order have to go in the middle of those, they're actually making restaurant lines in the back of their house so that they can quickly make all of those orders and put them in cubbies type of thing to be able to quickly take advantage of that opportunity. So,
do you think the restaurant experience is still as important as it was, say, 2 years ago?
Absolutely. People are still coming into stores. I think that as behavior changes, I think different restaurant categories like QSR, like fast casual, will have to evolve to make sure that, hey, if somebody has a regular order, let's say, that they get the same thing every time, that we make it super easy for them to go on the app, click a button, and have it ready in 10 minutes type of thing. I think that's the biggest opportunity with digital platforms, that it really enables you to help you connect with that consumer. And as you think about like coffee shops 10 years ago, before you could, I mean, today we all use the Starbucks app. We all kind of have our normal orders, and that order is ready by the time we walk in. But you think about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when you would walk into a Starbucks, there would be a line 10 people deep, and maybe sometimes you would leave because you didn't have time to actually go in, or on your way into work, you would decide, hey, it's not worth the risk. I'm not going to do it because
you wouldn't even start the process.
You wouldn't even start. So I think that's kind of the best example of kind of how digital is transforming the restaurant space, of making sure that consumer journey is seamless and you're connecting with customers the way they want to connect with you.
So do you think that Qdoba and other ones like that will continue to build out their own online services, their own apps, their own ordering systems to kind of bypass the GrubHub portion?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's always a debate of building it yourself and footing the bill on that, or using apps like GrubHub. I think it's always going to be a little bit of both. That you have to. So
you wouldn't just give it over all together. You wouldn't say, all right, we're done. It's these third-party guys that are going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. Like making sure that you're being able to be discovered in those platforms, but also be able to still own your own audience. You don't want to completely hand all of your brand equity over to a delivery service that doesn't care if they're ordering from you or somebody else. They ultimately, you want to make sure that you're owning that customer journey.
That makes sense. All right. How are we doing on time?
A few minutes. I have a question, actually. And I don't know if you answered this already, and if you did, I apologize. So with the GrubHubs and the DoorDashes and the like, and Uber Eats, what do you get from them in terms of data?
Nothing.
So, all right, I mean, I knew that answer, but like, what if they all have like some, I don't know if they all do, but some of them do have like paid listings now, like, you know, sponsored listings or whatever. What do you get in terms of that, and can you use that?
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back into like the contracts that you're working with them. So, I mean, the thing that customers don't necessarily know about these platforms is that they're paying a $5 delivery fee on top of what the restaurant price is. But those Uber Eats and all of those platforms are also taking a % of your check. For mom and pops, it can be up to 50%.
Yeah, wow.
That your check is getting cut by that much just to deliver the order. But I think one interesting thing with Uber Eats is that when you, forget where my train of thought was going.
About data, yeah.
Yeah, I totally lost it.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Well, it's a brave new world, right? I mean, do you like regard them as a kind of Google for your industry at some level?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, people can view them as enemies, but I think there's actually a ton of opportunity in the space because they're ultimately going to be controlling that experience. I know. Actually, the interesting thing is with the data that they're taking into account. One interesting thing that Uber Eats is doing right now is that they're seeing all of the different types of food that people are ordering in different neighborhoods. So let's say in San Diego, we have a lot of burger orders that are happening throughout the county, but there might be a pocket downtown that doesn't have a lot of good restaurants to serve burgers in that area. What they've actually started doing is going to some of these different restaurants and saying, okay, you guys are a pasta restaurant and you guys are serving Italian food. Could you guys make a phantom restaurant for us, call it something completely different from your name, and make burgers exclusively for Uber Eats? And so what Uber has been doing is creating these kind of pop-up restaurants within their app so that they can serve a need of a specific food type for that type of neighborhood. So it's interesting what Uber is doing with that data because they obviously are getting all of it and they can start to see, okay, here's where we can make more money by offering a specific type of food.
Wow, I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. Do you guys ever co-op? I know, see, Lori's got a question, but before, real quick, do you ever co-op with any of these guys to do any advertising? Is that something that...
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to it's kind of the Yelp model, where the more you pay, the higher you get ranked. And so it's not they have different opportunities where if you partner with them and do large executions, they can start to send out emails and do all that kind of stuff. But it's a pay-for-play model, for sure.
Would these guys ever be considered as a third-party data source, and would you ever be interested in something like that?
Yeah, I mean, their data is probably better than anybody else's. Unfortunately, they're not selling it directly right now.
It's a new business model for them.
Yep, exactly.
And there's nothing that you're getting back from them, like as Ross asked. I mean, you're getting zero data back. You don't know. All it is, it's an online order.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't know where it's going.
You can ultimately leverage some of their data to do types of sponsorships with them, but the data that you get back is essentially in your point of sale system, being able to see how many orders are coming back through those individual apps. So there's definitely analytics where you can see kind of the volume and the return on your investment with that, but it's
can you talk about some of that?
It's kind of more managed through the POS.
Well, can you talk about like sort of how it's increased and where like percentages and stuff right now?
Yeah, I mean, delivery is a huge opportunity right now. I mean, you look at companies like Panera that are actively touting kind of a lot of their off-premise offerings, like catering, for instance. I know I was reading an article about Panera, and I think their catering has increased 40% over the last year because that's one of their big opportunities, saying, hey, you don't have to come into a Panera, but let's create these offerings so that you can take them to your different office meetings or even kind of personal gatherings.
Well, okay, there you go. Oh, we got a question right here. Last question though, and then we've got to go to roundtables. Here you go, Nicole.
Hi, Nicole, USA. So with the food truck movement and how people are, moving around, and you just explained that example of how Uber Eats is helping with the pop-up, how does that relate with search? And is there anything interesting there around like being able to target currently located trucks, or like where are we on the cusp, and is that something more futuristic?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like food trucks is an interesting one because I used to work on Caribou Coffee, and one of their kind of opportunities was they actually created tuk-tuks and went out basically in the community, and whenever there was kind of pop-up events, they would bring the tuk-tuk and sell coffee at some of those things. So I think it's what's interesting about kind of the food truck movement and kind of local is that you really are able to connect with your community in different ways.
Okay, all right. Steve, Chris, thank you guys very much. Round of applause for those guys. Thank you.